all the time. You know what I mean? But that's the thing is like, if you expect to progress in whatever you're doing, you have to be uncomfortable, right?
100%.
Because when you're comfortable, you're not doing anything. So that's what I kept telling myself is progress through discomfort. My name's Terry Walker. I'm one of the owners here at Junction City CrossFit. I've been doing CrossFit since roughly about 2012, but my background is in Olympic lifting. I've trained and I've competed on almost the Olympic level, but due to some injuries, kind of sidelined me. So now I teach. Those who can teach don't do, and here I am.
I feel that.
Yeah.
I feel that. So, because you've been doing CrossFit for since 2012, you said, but why Olympic lifting specifically?
So with me, because like, everybody's different, right? Everybody's body's different. And I believe like my body style, my body structure, like my muscular buildup is more designed to move weight short distances very quickly.
Right.
I'm not an endurance athlete. I don't ever claim to be. I despise running. Which kind of sounds like, well, why do you do CrossFit, right? Because that's typically what it is. But I'm more keen to Olympic lifting because I think it's a true test of one's speed and agility and strength, that explosive power.
Yeah.
And I like the technicality of all those movements. And I'm naturally a teacher, right? So
a good one
I
at
believe,
that.
what's
good
that?
One. Very good one at that.
I appreciate it. And I just believe that I can coach more during an Olympic workout, like an Olympic lifting workout or the programming or something, than you do in your standard CrossFit class. You got one coach for 10 to 15 athletes. I like to be more technical. I'm a very technical focused type of person. So that's why I choose Olympic lifts, because you actually have to hit all the points of performance in order for it to be a successful lift.
It's not
it's per competition standards, right? But I also think that as long as you do hit the points of performance, that's where you can move a lot of weight very safely, because it's based off of how the body moves, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm more keen to the Olympic lifts than I am with the CrossFit, contrary to belief, even though I own a CrossFit gym.
Right.
But I love the aspect of the Olympic lifts. So that's why I choose Olympic lifting.
Because when I started here and I saw cleans, I was like, I didn't know what the fuck that was.
Yeah.
I knew it was like picking weights up in a fast manner.
Yep.
And as you know, I don't really lift weights that fast.
Right.
You're always giving me cues to like speed through the middle.
Yep.
And in the beginning, I was like, I don't even know where the middle is. Like, is it in the middle of the lift? But is it in the middle of like when I have, so little things like that. And I remember not having the proper technique.
I remember too.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. And just, I remember I would look at everyone else, male and female, and I'm like, wow, they're fucking like power cleaning and snatching like heavy ass weight.
Oh yeah.
And what I found was like the ego part of me was like, let me just slap on weight. I could do that.
Yeah,
and I found
ego
that
lifting.
Yeah. Then I found I'd go home and I'm fucked. Like it's not even like a muscle soreness. It's like ow, this hurts now.
Yep.
Like in my knees and my wrist. Most importantly, even like when we're doing the warm up for Olympic lifts, I'll do the snatch variation for the warm ups.
Right.
And then once I do like my second go around, I put wrist reps on, because what I used to do was combat sports, so my wrists were just taking beatings.
Yep.
And I would just wrap my wrists and everything, but now they're being bent in certain ways. And just the load it puts on, but the cues that you give in like saying, push the knee, the hips and shoulders moving at the same time, those little cues, that's when I had realized, wow, I need someone like yourself to be like, we need to make these certain adjustments, because like you said in the beginning, like those who teach don't do anymore.
Right.
I found when I was teaching, I wasn't doing as much, and I was like, yo, you got to do it this way, because also from like my past failures and realizing like certain techniques didn't work a certain way. And what I'd always tell my students when they were like, oh, coach, that doesn't work, I was like, well, the technique don't suck. You suck at the technique.
Right.
And then I found myself when I would try to like like clean 185, I was like, well, the technique isn't sucking. I'm sucking at the technique
Right.
and everything. And so,
Yeah, because like, you know, with the training, and that's the biggest thing that I try to communicate to my athletes that I coach, is like, this is training. This is where we're supposed to get it wrong, but that's my job as a coach to say, hey, here's these cues. This is what I'm seeing, because it's a lot easier for me as a coach to kind of stand back and watch, right? There's never going to be a perfect lift.
Right.
It's impossible, right? There can be like good lifts, and there can be like, hey, that lift looked good, but I always ask, like, how did that feel? Did you feel it, right? Because it's based off of everybody's person. Like, everybody's designed differently, so it's going to feel differently, right?
Completely.
So like with me, I have a short femur. You have longer femurs. So there's going to be different ways. Like, I understand, because you with longer femurs, I'm accepting that your shoulders are going to be a little far forward in that start position, because if I was to try to tell you to push your shoulders up, it's going to throw you completely off balance, right? So there's parameters that, as a coach with that experience, that's why it's important for that coach to have that knowledge, right? And be like, okay, I understand, I can accept the shoulders going forward to the bar because he's got long femurs, right?
right.
Versus me, I'm gonna coach my body style a little bit different, right? Because I do have short femurs, so I'm gonna be able to be put in almost that picture perfect start position, right? Because I have an image in my mind of what it's supposed to look like, and that's what I try to put out to everybody else. So the key to the Olympic lifts and the coaching is not just knowing the lifts and not understanding the points of performance in each lift, but also understanding the athlete. Look at how your athlete is built. What are their possibilities? There's a difference from coming in here and beating the shit out of your athletes than versus coming in and actually progressing your athletes. You're not going to understand what's going to happen if you don't understand how your athlete is built, right? Look at their possibility or their potential and be like, okay, what do I need to do to reach that person to the potential? Because right now, for instance, like, you've been on my program for what, 4 months now? Well, three months now, right? And
shit is great, but it hurts. It hurts. I was telling them today, I got this week's. I opened it, I closed my phone right away. I pretend that it wasn't there. I pretend it wasn't there, but I know it's for the better.
It is. And that's the thing, right? Is because, like, look at it like this. So when you first started the programming, actually when you first started the Olympic lifts, you had super slow elbows, right?
Yeah.
And that was causing discomfort because you got slow elbows, you're catching the bar a lot lower, and that's putting a lot of stress on that lower back when it's not even designed to do that. The way it's designed to do is fast elbows to receive the bar in that catch position, but keeping the shoulders over the hips, because it's how your body's built, right? But now you've been on the program, 3 months, and like, elbows are a non-issue now, right? Elbows are a non-issue. So it's things like that, like what I do, and that's why I have you video, periodically video the lifts, because I want to see how your body's moving, right? Because that's going to dictate how I program the next following week. Like, okay, his elbows are there. I kind of want to maintain that elbow, so I'm going to put in lifts like cleans and stuff like that, and front squats, because I want to maintain that. But now I'm like, that second pull is a little slow, so that's when I'm going to start programming clean grip deadlifts, snatch grip deadlifts, pause pulls, stuff like that. And like, that's why I do that, is because I have to see how your body is reacting to the lifts. I can care less about weight. Weight will get there, right? More is I want you to be able to execute the lifts safely at a lighter weight, because if I can get you to consistently do that, then I can push you a little bit on the weights, because it's automatically going to come. It's kind of like that, like that sympathetic movement stuff that they talk about, right? Whatever your right hand's doing, your left hand kind of wants to do the same thing. So it's kind of goes hand in hand. If I can get you to execute those lifts at a lighter weight, the weight's automatically going to come, because it feels a lot easier, it feels a lot better, and you're not in pain. we work out through soreness. We don't work out through pain, right? So
Right.
there's a definite difference. Like obviously after we just smashed Murph today,
Yeah.
I don't
Murph
expect
sucked.
your
It sucked.
I don't expect
In the rain
this,
too.
Yeah, you know, but I don't expect your lifts to look good because I already know you're sore. But as long as we can focus on those key points of performance, I think you're going to be solid, right? And it's absolutely going to build up that strength down the road.
Because I've also noticed when I come in, like remember the day I was like, oh, I'm gonna fucking, my snatches are gonna be crazy.
Yeah.
Coach Terry's gonna be like, bro, you don't even need me today. And then sure shit, I shit the bucket on that one. But I noticed like with those small cues, like even like when I would coach my guys in fights, I'd give them cues like when you would tell me, like pull my elbows up.
Right.
I completely forgot about all that. Or like when you have me do in the program, it says snatch high pulls.
Yep.
I've noticed like when you introduce those movements or the clean extensions, I've noticed like you incorporating that, and this is why it's really good to have a coach because I didn't know about the high pulls or the extensions, and then when you introduced that, I had noticed when I would do my snatches and my cleans, then I knew to make the cue, I gotta, shrug when I get to my hips, and then I just find that the bar just kind of like floats like butter just onto my shoulder. And like when I come here, and then when you say it, you're like, how did that feel? And I'm like, it felt like nothing.
Right.
So those small little cues are a pinnacle to the change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I'd find that like, and I'm sure other people can relate. They're like, oh, like it felt easy. Like I could just add weight, and then they're adding weight, but their technique is
out the window,
gone,
right?
And because sometimes, like you said, like not all lifts are gonna be perfect.
Yep.
But you don't want it to just be complete dog shit.
Right.
And then when you go to do like 80%, that's like close to your max, like with good form. Because I'm sure you and like every coach would rather someone have good form and it's like a little lighter than have horrible form.
100%.
Because
100%.
Because even when I would teach my guys, like you said, you can't train the same athletes the same way because their bodies are different. Like the same thing with combat sports. Like I could teach someone who's short and stocky, like how to fight, like on the outside and go inside. But the way they're built, like I wouldn't teach someone like Mike Tyson to fight like Muhammad Ali.
Right.
And I wouldn't teach someone like Muhammad Ali to fight like Tyson.
Right.
Because you got to understand
different abilities.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Different abilities, and that's the thing too. It's like everybody moves differently, especially like I'm 43 years old. I don't move like I was when I was 17. Right. So understanding that aspect too, like. You're a fit guy. You're a lot, well, not a lot younger than me, but you know what I mean. But you are younger than me, so your mobility and your agility is going to be on point. I don't want to lose that, so that's why we program those movements in there. There's a lot of hinging movements that we program, is because I still want you to maintain that flexibility and that mobility, because with proper mobility, it's going to lead into achieving those points of performance in each of those lifts, right? So I don't want to overdo it, right? Like right now, for this month, you're in a pre-comp mesocycle. So I know that you're ready for it because your stamina is...
Thank you.
Because your stamina is there. Your stamina has always been there. I have no issues with your stamina, which a lot of people have issues with the stamina. Like me, my stamina is not up there. Like I said, I'm not an endurance athlete. I'm designed to move heavyweight, short distances quickly. That's what I'm designed for. The way you are and the way your body style is and your abilities is maybe you can't move heavy weight short distances quickly, but you can move moderate weight long distances efficiently, right? And I still want to capitalize on that, so that's why I'm front loading you on this pre-comp mesocycle, is because it is very, very, very volume heavy. But I know you can handle it because you have that endurance, which with the endurance, when you start executing heavy lifts, after you've done 100 reps of these certain movements, if I can get you to execute that lift with proper form and technique when your muscles and your body is fatigued, just imagine how much more weight you're going to be able to move when you're fresh, right? Obviously with a proper warm up and everything like that, but that's what, I mean, the human body is amazing. You know what I mean? Like I always tell my athletes, like, listen, dude, your mind's gonna give up before your body does. And I think that was from David Goggins, honestly. You know, one of like his books, if you ever read his book and everything like that, he's a solid dude and he's got some really good points. But scientifically speaking, if you think about it, like your body can endure so much, right?
Yeah,
we are very, very human. The human race is very resilient. We recover very quickly. And so with that said, it's when you start programming these weights, it's not good to continually expose the body to a certain amount of outside force for a long time, like long period of time. Like I'm not gonna do a solid month of like, hey, I'm just gonna hammer volume, right? Because if you notice, like if you think about the 3 months of programming, it's like a roller coaster, right? Like some weeks and some days you're like, shit, man, that was like almost 180 repetitions of this weight, and then all of a sudden you see the next day there's only 3 movements.
Right.
So we're bringing it back down, right? It's kind of like almost like a self-programmed deload, right? It lets your body recover, but it still executes those movements. And so that's why I think it's super important to understand the athlete. Like, what is your abilities? Like, obviously, I'm not going to program like, you know, I program for another person at the gym. He's designed like I am. He is designed to move heavyweight short distances very quickly, but he doesn't have the endurance. So his volume and his programming, I kind of spread it out throughout the week. But
makes sense.
You know what I mean? So I probably won't start him on a pre-comp mesocycle because I need to build his muscle endurance. Like, yeah, he can move a lot of weight. Like, he's super strong, but he just can't maintain that level of performance throughout the entire workout. And I don't want to do that because he's got heavy deadlifts at the end of his workout. So if I smash him at the beginning of it, how do you think
they're done at the end?
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's a give and take, right? So, but that's why it's important to know the athlete, what are their abilities are, you know what I mean? And that's the good thing about coaching you guys in a CrossFit class, because I can kind of see where each person is, right? Like obviously, like Jeremiah, stamina, check, right? Strength, we're working on it. You know what I'm saying? But then the other athlete, I'm like, stamina, trash, right? But his strength, check. So it's like, it's a little different, you know what I mean? You can't have that cookie cutter, cookie cutter type of thing, so.
So even though there's different kinds of athletes and their bodies move differently, do you find that there's like 2 cues that you're always giving people no matter what?
Yes and no. That's a very good question. When it comes to cueing, you have to be careful because you can over cue somebody.
Right.
Okay.
I've fallen victim to that before.
Right. Yeah. You know, people
gyms.
are just sitting there and you're like, dude, just let me fucking do this shit. Right. So there is and there isn't. Like we get into like, you know, with the CrossFit class, with our training and stuff to get our certificates, they talk about cueing. And a lot of times they always tell you like, don't over cue somebody. Especially like if they're a senior athlete, they know how to do the movements. The bad time to do it is like right in the middle of Murph. Like me trying to cue you, you know, they're like, hey, keep your head up, blah, blah, blah.
I'd be like mid push-up, I'd be like, I don't know what you're saying.
There's no retainability. Like no, because like even like when Corey and I were doing Murph this morning, we had the radio on. I can't tell you what I listened to because I'm checked out, right? I'm just doing the movements. So I tend to try to like find 2 of the most important cues to prevent injury, right? So one of the main cues I always say is like, hey, engage your core, right? Because that's what's protecting the body. If you got trash for core, you're gonna get lower back pains, you're gonna get knee pains, you're gonna get shoulder pains, right? So one of my favorite cues that I always go to, because it's a good reminder, is like, hey, engage your core, be tight, active, right? Especially with Olympic lifts, that's super important because you're not going to try to yoke 135 pounds in a snatch position with not engaging your core. It's not going to happen, right? So my first one is like always engage your core. And then my second one is I always try to tell them explode out of the bottom, right? Because a lot of things that I see is in that start position on a snatch or on a clean and jerk, from the floor to about bottom of the knee, it's okay to be somewhat slow and controlled, but then once you get past the knees, it's rock and roll time, right? Because that's where you're building that momentum, because now you're in more of an ergonomically correct position to where you can actually increase that explosive power and speed without hurting your back by trying to yoke, 225 pounds up in the air.
Right.
So that's when I say, hey, engage your core. Once you get up to the knees, let's explode. Rapidly pull those knees in, insert your hips, big elbows.
Yeah,
right?
when you made the cue for my knees to come in, that's when it all clicked. Plus the hips moving with the shoulders.
Yep.
And then once it gets past the hips, so those cues are game changing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then the thing is too, is like, it's all about communication, right? And I know, contrary to belief, like men can't communicate. No, men can communicate. It's just we communicate differently. So like, how can I cue you on something to where you understand it, right? So that's why, like, sometimes I give you cues, I come up with some weird shit, but it makes sense, right? Like I always say, like, hey, pulling the knees back. I tell them, like, hey, push your knees out as if you were doing like a curtsy, right? On ballet, right? People do the curtsies, they push the knees out.
And I've never done ballet in my life, but I knew exactly
But
what
you
you
knew
meant.
exactly what I was talking about because you've seen it, right? And you're like, oh, I know what a curtsy is, and the knees go out. So it's like it's not just knowing the cues, it's how do you effectively communicate that to your athlete, right? And like how I like to do it is I'll give you a cue or something, and I'll stand to watch your next rep to ensure that you receive the cue that I'm telling you, and then I walk off. You know what I mean? So that's the biggest trap I think a lot of new coaches come into, is they tend to over cue at the wrong time. You know what I mean? So even when I watch you, like I know I've done it to you a couple times, like I'll watch you do a movement, and in my mind I'm like, okay, yeah, he fucked that up, fucked that up, all right. But I let you complete that rep, and then I come and talk to you, right? Because I want that last rep to be a good rep. Even if it's your last rep of that entire workout, I want that rep to be good, because I always like to leave on a good note. It's kind of like firearms training, right? I've years and years and years of firearms instructor training. I don't like to leave a range where, let's say you're my trainee, right? And we go out to the range and you shoot like ass and you don't qualify. You're more harder on yourself than the instructor is, right? So I don't like to leave a range on a bad note. So what it is, okay, like let's say our shooting iterations all about speed, 5 rounds, 2 seconds, all in the 5 or all in the A ring. Well, if you're not hitting it, then what I like to do is at the end of the range, I'm like, okay, like Jeremiah, let's go over here, grab a 10 round magazine, and I want you to put 10 slow, controlled rounds in that dot. And then you're out there and you're tacking nails, like bam, bam, and then we're done. Now you can leave that range and be like, I know I can shoot good. Right. It's just I need to work on that speed, right? It's the same thing in lifts. Like, let's say I had programmed like Cindy, which is 30 clean and jerks for time. And I let you do that workout, and your clean and jerks look like ass. And they just not good, and now your back's hurting. When you're done, I'm gonna be like, hey dude, grab that barbell, let's load some 10s on it, and let's do some clean and jerks. Because I want you to leave on that good note. I want you to leave knowing that, hey, I can absolutely do this very well, right? It's just, Cindy, it's 30 clean and jerks at 135 pounds. Like, yeah, that sucks for anybody to do, right? So I always like to leave on a good note. So that's why even if it's your last rep, I give you the cues. I'm gonna stand there and I'm gonna make sure you hit those cues. And a lot of times, what I found, you included, you and Jen, you and your old lady, I'll give you guys a cue at the beginning of the lift, but then I'll give you a rapid cue right in the middle of the lift, because sometimes what happens is I think, as you're thinking about the lifts, you're thinking about all the cues that I gave you, but I really want you to focus on that one important one, right? So I'm like, going through there, I'll be like, hey, explode, elbows high. Boom, and then you hit it, because it's like, that's the last thing that you heard me say, so you hit that element, right? That point of performance, and then you have a successful lift, right? So There's different things that you can do, but I think the biggest thing is over cueing. Be cautious of over cueing.
Yeah.
That's why you don't see me give you guys a lot of cues. I give you one or two and I walk away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I would do the same when I'd have guys like fighting and sparring.
Yeah.
Because when you're in the middle of, you know, trading leather with someone, you're not, you want to hear what your coach is saying, but you're also fighting somebody at the same time, you know, and I put it towards like weights. Like I'm hearing you, but at the same time, like I'm lifting the weight.
Yep.
And I know like if I mess up or if I don't focus on it, I'm gonna injure myself. And same thing like over cueing in like combat sports, especially, you know, it's, you want your guy to hear you, but if you're just saying like constant things, then you're not allowing them to like get into their flow a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why like there's been times where I'll go to the gym and when my mind's clear and I'm just like, yeah, it's gonna be a good day. Like those are like good lifts.
Yeah.
And then there's days where like I woke up and I didn't feel great. Then we did a PT in the morning and then, you know, work. They're making me do stupid shit.
Yeah.
And then I go to the gym or I'll go home and then I'll look at the workout and I'm like, I could just do this tomorrow. And I'm like, nah, I'm gonna go do it today.
Yep.
And even like with that mentality with like switching it to go into the gym is something I wanted to ask you on, because I remember you posted a video of you front squatting 300 pounds, which is crazy. But then a few weeks later, you told me your max was like 5 something.
Yep.
You're just saying, yeah, like that's not a lot of fucking weight.
It is.
And so I guess like my question is, because I remember you had told me your coach told you had the biggest, weakest legs or something like that.
Yeah, the
like,
biggest, weakest legs. Yeah.
And then you kind of like locked in. And so being able to front squat that much, you had to have been working out religiously.
Oh yeah, I was.
You know, I tell my friends, you know, like there's no like balance when you want to get something. You know, like if you really want something, like you got to sacrifice something. So I guess like what did you have to sacrifice in order to be able to front squat that much? Because that's a lot of weight.
That's a solid question. And the easiest way I can answer that, dude, is there's a saying that I always play in my head, and I've done it since I was 16, right? Progress through discomfort.
Progress through discomfort.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So what I had to sacrifice is my comfortability. Like I had to stop being so comfortable, right? So, you know, when my coach did tell me, he's like, dude, you got the biggest, weakest legs. So what I would do, and I'm like, you know what? Like, you're right, I do. I've always had big legs, and I'm like, I should be a lot more powerful. And then that's what I locked it in, and I was just like, dude, progress through discomfort, right? Like those days where you're like, I fucking feel like going to the gym.
Yeah.
You know,
I find myself complain all the way up until the bar.
Time. You know what I mean? But that's the thing is like, if you expect to progress in whatever you're doing, you have to be uncomfortable, right?
100%.
Because when you're comfortable, you're not doing anything. So that's what I kept telling myself is progress through discomfort. Obviously identified like, hey, what are my weakest things? And it's like, at the time, I didn't really have a whole lot of weakest things because I was pretty strong in a lot of stuff. So it was like, what do I not want to do? Fucking front squats. So what did I do, man?
Wow.
Yeah, I just would hammer out front squats. I'd be like, all right, let me do 20 front squats before I even get started in my workout. Was it always the best idea? Fuck no. Because in my workout, I was like, man, my legs are smashed.
Yeah.
So it's constant reminding yourself, like, even though those days that you don't feel like working out, even those days where you come in and I send you a program like what you said, you like do it, I'm like shit.
I'm not gonna lie, I opened it, I saw it's gonna be a grind, and I was like, I clicked on it, I saw it was like 70, 80, 90, 85, 90. I was like, I turned it, I was like, nah.
Right, you know what I mean? But that's the thing is like, the only way that you're going to progress is doing what you don't want to do,
Absolutely.
Right? And like,
Absolutely.
I refer to David Goggins a lot.
Great
The dude's
guy.
just an animal.
He is.
amazing veteran, dude. And
Yeah,
like
from 300 pounds to a Navy SEAL.
exactly, and like the dude still grinds it out.
Still.
Like he doesn't care, right? Because that's the thing is like, don't be comfortable. Like the moment you get comfortable, especially like, you know, being a law enforcement officer for 20 plus years, being on a TAC unit for majority of that, there was a lot of times that I wanted, like, you go into situations you don't want to go into. And, you know, like, I've never been in the military, so I don't know what it's like in the combat zone. But I'm pretty sure that military guys can relate to because there's going to be situations that you're going to be put in that you don't want to be in. But the only way to move forward is what? Push through.
Is by doing it. Yeah. And, you know, we did the Murph today.
Exactly.
You know? So, like, in moments like that, he didn't.
Yeah, dude,
no
I hit round 12, and I just was like, dude, why am I doing this? Like, this is fucking stupid. But then you remember, you know, I had a buddy of mine, Ricky Sehal, you know, rest in peace, buddy. But he was killed in Iraq. And so, like, when I hit that wall, you know what I mean? I hit that 12. I went and wrote his name on my board. Because it's like, you need a reminder. And like, you know, in law enforcement, you always say, like, you know, you go in and you're working a case and you got this interview coming up and you're like, you don't plan for it. You just kind of just try to go in there winging it. There's no winging it, right? You always have to have a goal. Because if you don't have a goal, how do you know where the hell you're going?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So having that reminder there and putting my buddy Ricky down kind of really let me lock it in. Right? Because oftentimes when you start to get into that dark area where it's like you're sucking, you're tired, you're not moving as quick, you kind of lose sight of what your goal was, right? And obviously the goal for Murph today is to remember those that never made it back, and is you know, doing the things that we kind of take for granted every day. And I guarantee you those guys, if they were here, they would give everything for it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And where it really kind of locked in for me, you know, the Go Ruck events. I don't know if you ever heard of those or anything like that. They have a Go Ruck event, and there's levels, but myself, Christina Spencer, and Vincent Spencer, who were the previous owners of the gym, we decided to do the Go Ruck Heavy, which is kind of like the top of the 3, but they have harder ones that go above that. And this Go Ruck Heavy, they tell you you're going to be rucking 24 plus miles. Actually, no, it's 40 plus miles and 24 plus hours. You don't know where you're gonna stop, right? And I remember specifically, dude, and it really hit home. And I'll tell you a situation, and I laugh about it now, but dude, I remember the feeling in the middle of it. But so our cadre, we had to have weights. You had to have a team weight, and then you had to have like individual things that you had to carry. Well, the team weight, the cadre let the team build it, design it, do whatever, right? So we were carrying these sandbags, and we actually had to huff around our water buffalo too on like 2 little sticks, you know, they're like metal poles.
Right.
And but then the cadre picked the individual weights. Well, I remember our cadre showed up with one of those small watermelons. You know what I'm talking about? Like you know, you got the big watermelon, but he showed up with the small one, and we're all thinking, we're like, what the fuck are we doing with this? Are we going to eat this? I don't know, you know what I mean? But we had to carry it. And the theme of our event was 22, right? The 22 awareness that 22 veterans kill themselves, you know, every hour throughout the day. So it was really focused on the veterans and everything. And the cool thing about the Go Ruck is all the cadre are in special ops somehow, whether they were in Green Beret, CAG, Air Force Special Forces, like, you know, the PJs, the CCT guys, Marine Recon. It was like all they had to, in order to be a cadre, you had to be in special operations. So I thought that was really good because they're so team focused, right? Except for CAGs, like CAG's kind of self-operated, but it's just the idea, right? And so with this watermelon, I remember, dude, because like, you can't have your phone on you. You can't have a GPS watch. You can't even have a watch. So your sense of time and direction is gone.
It's gone.
It's gone. Like
sometimes that's the worst.
Yeah,
thing ever.
like it's kind of like blind faith, right? You're just following. And so I remember it was late at night. I don't know, like it was so late. Like all you can kind of gauge was there was morning dew on the grass in one of the fields that we had to do grass drills in for. Yeah, it was a mess. But so I'm like, okay, it's got to be maybe around like 2 or 3 o'clock maybe 4 o'clock in the morning. This is downtown Kansas City, right? And we just got smoked, and we're on our next trek to start rucking. Well, we were going up this big old freaking hill, and that damn watermelon, man. So the way it was is you can only carry the watermelon in one hand.
Okay.
And when that hand got tired or that arm got tired, you couldn't just switch to your other hand. I had to go find my buddy and switch it into his hand, and then he can switch it back to my hand.
Okay.
That's how we could transfer this watermelon.
And just one hand.
And just one hand.
Just one hand, damn.
And so I remember we were going up the hill. Christina Spencer was carrying the watermelon, and we're going up this fucking hill, and like off to the right-hand side of us, there must have been like 100-foot fucking drop. Like it was, because we're going up this hill and it's like right off the embankment. And I think I was probably like 5 or 6 people ahead in the stack. And all of a sudden we hear shit. And I turn around and we drop the watermelon. Christina was trying to switch it with one of the other person. When they switched it back, it fell out of her hand and it rolled down this ravine. And I was like, everybody, you can kind of hear everybody stop breathing because we didn't know what the cadre was going to do. And he was like, you dropped my watermelon? And we're all watching this watermelon roll down this hill, dude. And we're like, oh my God, please do not bust open. Well, it finally came to rest, and it was intact. It didn't bust. And so we're all like standing around, and the cadre was like, go get my fucking watermelon. And we're like, we don't have any ropes on us, nothing, dude, right? And we're like trying to figure out like, okay, how can we do it? So then we're like, human daisy chain, right? So we like interlocked arms.
Wow.
Mind you, we got a 35-pound
Fucking
ruck
rucks
on with all your pokey bait and your water and everything like that, dude. And so we're like daisy chained all the way down, and then we had the watermelon.
They got a watermelon.
Yeah, and dude, we had to pass the watermelon all the way up. And then when we got back, I don't know how far we fucking walked, but we walked for probably another 3 hours. And then we came into this other open field, and they kind of let us drop our packs. And the cadre finally explained the purpose of this watermelon. Mm-hmm. So the cadre that brought the watermelon, he was part of the DA team as an 18 X-ray. Okay. So he was 18 Fox, I think, is a firearms guy. And the DA team is the direct action team. So he was like, our team was the guys like kicking the doors, clearing the rooms and stuff like that. And he's like, well, one of my buddies got blown up and he lost both legs and both arms. Damn. And so he's like, the purpose of the watermelon is for you to understand that you take advantage of things every day and you don't understand why. He's like, because I guarantee you my buddy would love to hold that watermelon. And he kind of put it, and he kind of put it in perspective for us. And I was just like, man, I felt like this big, because I'm like, fuck, dude, you're right. Like you take walking, like one of our athletes here at the gym, like he doesn't have legs, but he comes out, he comes in here, he rocks it out.
Crushes it.
Dude, I guarantee he would give anything to run. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So with tying that into Murph, like that's kind of what I try to remember as I was hitting that wall, and I locked it in right around my 12 round mark. I locked it in and I just got it done because I remember that. And but for our cadre to reinforce that, like they smoked the shit out of us for about an hour, and then we had to continue our route, but we lost our strap privileges on our rucks, so we had to actually physically carry our rucks without the straps. And so the only exemptions is like if you were, dude, I'm telling you, it was
I'm
bad.
Thinking about it right now.
Bad.
That's so fun.
It was so bad. So yeah, dude, like we rucked for miles while carrying our rucks. The only time that you could use the straps on your rucks is if you were carrying the team weight, the flag, because the flag's always in the front, or if you're carrying the watermelon or the water buffalo, you can wear your straps. And bro, I'm telling you, we all damn near fought to carry team weights and shit because we wanted to carry our rucks with the straps.
Right, hell yeah.
But I do remember we're going through that. Everybody, we're all dying. Like we're dead at this point. Like we've been rucking all day. We ran out of water. And so
that's not something you want to run that on a ruck.
Part of our route, we went through this like residential area. So our cadre was like, we're like, hey, we're black on water. And he was like, well, you guys need water. So we found the house with a water hose and we sat there like, it had to have been like 5 o'clock in the morning. We're like filling up our water buffalo. But yeah, no, it was a great time, but it definitely puts things into perspective with like the Murph and stuff. And that entire time, like every single one of us were uncomfortable, but we all pushed through, right? And then at the end, it was a great feeling. And once you got that patch and like you sit there with the cadre and they kind of tell you the story and stuff like that of their experiences, and you're just like, wow. But being able to achieve something that great, and I think we ended up rucking like 46 miles for 26 hours straight.
Damn.
It was a good time, but if you ask me if I'll ever do it again, fuck no, I'm not. That was one and done for me. You know what I mean?
I feel that.
Like, and I remember I tore my groin muscle. They put us in the water in our boots and utes and stuff, and I had torn my groin muscle, and they were gonna fucking drop me. Cadre kind of pulled me off to the side, and he was like, hey man, and I looked, I didn't even let him finish, and I said, bro, if the only words that I want to hear come out of your mouth respectfully is to push through. I was like, don't you dare fucking drop me. Because they were like medical, they were gonna drop me. And I was like, nah, don't you fucking dare. I was like, yeah, I'm in pain. Yeah, it hurts. But I was like, I'm not leaving my team. Like, that's not me, right? Oh, yeah. So I pushed through, barely, but I was able to push through. And then I had to come back the next day and work fucking patrol. Like, dude, so it was bad.
Damn.
But yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why I say like the human body is amazing. Like we're very resilient. My brain gave up a long time ago, but what I learned during that course is to shut my brain off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And just go. And when it comes to Olympic lifting or CrossFit, sometimes you just got to shut your brain off, right? Like, how many times have you hear me tell you, like, hey, dude, just lift the weight?
Yeah, a lot.
Right, you know what I mean? Like, you already know the points of performance. Just shut your brain off and lift the weight. It's not that hard. And 9 times out of 10, when you don't think about it, it's a great lift.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're like, dude, I felt solid, right? So I think one of the big important messages that, you know, I can get across is sometimes just learn how to shut your brain off, because like I said, your brain will give up way before your body does, right? Because it's called, what is it? A cognitive dissonance, right? You know what cognitive dissonance is? Your body's inability or brain's inability to house 2 conflicting ideas. So if you say you can't, your body's not going to be like, no, you can.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like they always say, is like you speak into the universe what you want. Like, so if you tell yourself can't, you won't, because your body is going to do everything that the brain is telling it to do to prevent you from achieving it. So sometimes, dude, just learning to tell your brain to shut the fuck up and let's go, that's what you got to do.
And it's funny you say that, because lately I've been running more. I watched David Goggins a lot.
Who's gonna carry the boats?
Yeah,
and the whores.
And
fucking me, motherfucker.
Yeah, that's it.
You know?
Or like we spoke about the video he had with one of the UFC fighters, and I was watching that yesterday, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, I gotta put my running shoes on. But even like, there's times when I'm just home, and I'll look at my running shoes, and I'm like, I don't really want to run. Yeah. But then I think about like, before I got into the service, you know, I'd complain all the way until I was done with something, you know. And one of the things a good friend of mine, he told me, I was working out with him one day. Well, he was training me, and I was like, yo, man, I'm just not feeling it. And he's like, you know, just get out your mind. Yeah. I was like, what? And he's like, he was like, you're in your mind. I was like, yeah. He's like, just get out.
Yeah, just shut it off.
The simplest thing. And then ever since that moment, I'd run. I do lifting, especially in competition, like when you're fighting, like we spoke about like overcueing, but in a fight or like in working out, you don't want to overthink, because then, you know, 1 second went by, 30 seconds went by, 2 minutes went by. Yeah. And especially in like a day like today, you just got to keep hammering, and you got to turn your mind off. And that's something that I agree with, because there's days I'd complain all the way until I get to the gym door, and then I'm like, yeah, fuck it, I'm here now. What am I gonna do?
Absolutely.
You know, and that's why, like, there's days when I'd come in, I'd rip the door open and I smile. Yeah. And in my mind, I'm like, well, now people see me. Now I can't be like, hey guys, I'll see you later. Yeah. You know, because then I know, like, people message me, or like in the app, they'd be like, yo, like why'd you just turn away like that? You know, and that's not something I want I want to be, because like when I was teaching, I didn't want my students to see that.
Yep.
Like, you know, my students would see me win a fight, I'd have my rest day, I'm back in the gym.
Yep.
I lost the fight, I took my rest day, I was back in the gym.
Yeah.
You know, and just that mentality of you just gotta keep going.
Dude, because you gotta understand, man, what you don't change, you choose.
Yeah, yep.
It's all about a decision. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so, like the days, like going back to the lacing up and running, you know what I mean? Like, the biggest thing is making the decision. I think that's the hardest thing, right? Make a decision, because here's what you can do. Like, hey, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, you're thinking about hitting that snooze. Give yourself to 5 and just say, hey, at 5, I'm gonna get up. Yep. And then count to 5. Because you've already made that decision, so what is your body gonna do? It's gonna fucking argue with you? No, it's not, no. Right? So just remember, dude, what you don't change, you choose.
You're choosing. That's a good quote.
You know what I'm saying? So if you want that change, just fucking make a decision and fire off, dude. Like full send, fuck it. You know? Full send. Full send, man.
Yeah. And I've never heard that expression used so much until I got here.
Yeah.
And then when we were doing like maxes one day, it was like you and Corey just like, yo, full send that shit.
Yeah.
And I was like, yo, what does that mean? And I just saw people like lifting shit and doing like, it's a really powerful.
It
send
is.
It. Just send it.
Just send it. And that's the thing, man, is like, people underestimate the power of a decision, right? Like, and I'll relate it back to when Corey and I were thinking about buying this gym. Like, you know, I thought about it because it is scary. Like buying a business, it's a scary venture. But like Corey was locked in. Me, I'm a little bit older, so I'm more cautious, right? And you know, this training I just went to, we took this test to kind of show what your style is, right? It's called the DISC assessment. I don't know if you ever heard about that.
No.
Basically your personality, and I'm an SI, right? Okay. So I more am inclined to work as a team. You know, I care about everybody's opinion. I want everybody to be happy. I want everybody to feel included. And there's guys that are like an I, which I is more emotional, right? They're like the life of the party. Like they just want everybody to be happy. They're kind of like that introverted extrovert, right? They have a meter of people, you know, like, oh, right. I'm done peopled out today. And then you have your C, which those guys are your more analytical guys, right? Those are the guys that take their time, they work slow, but they look at everything, right? But you know when they're done and they produce a product, it's done the right way. And then you have the D personality, which those are your like in your face, let's go, let's freaking do it, right? Everybody has a little bit of each trait in them, but you're more predominant in certain traits. Like I have a little bit of the D characteristics, I have a little bit of the I have a little bit of the C, but I'm very SI focused, so I'm very S focused. But what I'm saying, what I say that to say this is everybody has the ability to make a decision and stick to it. Maybe not get all of the facts right up front, but I have an end goal and I'm gonna do whatever I need to do to get there, right? We all have those characteristics in there. And that's why like I always tell people like when they come in and be like, hey, you know, this is kind of what I wanna do. Like when we do our no sweat class or our no sweat, it's more of understanding like, hey, what do you want? What's your goal, right? And they tell me the goal and then I'm like, okay, well, based off of what you're wanting and where you're at currently, I would recommend this type of membership. But the thing is I tell them too, is like, once you get in there and you've done it, there's gonna be a decision you're gonna have to make, right? Absolutely. It's that old saying like shit or get off the pot. I don't like saying that because it's got such yeah, it's like shit or get off the pot, dude. It's such a negative tone though, right? Because I'm all about positivity. Mm-hmm. I think our world and our society does a very good job of inducing negativity, right?
Yeah, really. Yeah.
So when you guys come to our gym, or if I have an interaction with you, I want to be positive, right? Because positivity is what propels success, right? Mm-hmm. Because I've never met a successful negative Nancy, You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I've never met somebody that has just been so god awful to be around because they're so negative, which I'm pretty sure if you think about it, you got a couple names in mind.
Yeah.
But look at where that person's at and look at where they could be at if they just change their mentality.
Yeah.
Because mentality is everything. Mentality is absolute everything. I mean, we could spend all day on this. Like there's so many scientific backups and like, but once I learned to change my mentality and to shut my brain off and just execute, because I can't think of the guy's name. He does a podcast. He was a former SEAL. He's got like this great fucking beard, but he was a SEAL team guy. And he says, listen, he's like, there'll be times that they'll be stacked up on a door or something like that. And maybe at that moment you're not ready or you don't feel like you're ready, but then you hear those 3 words. And he's like, when you hear those 3 words, he's like, nothing fucking matters, just to execute. And that was execute, execute, execute. And he said, I'm popping that door because once the door bangs, it's go time. You don't have time to think, right? And that's like sometimes in here, I always tell you guys, hey, fucking send it, dude. Fire it off. Don't think about it. Because if you give yourself time to think about it, you can talk yourself out of anything.
Yep, absolutely.
You know what I mean? So
absolutely.
That's why I always say, hey, dude, make a decision and let's go. Like, you know, when I was the SWAT team commander, that's what I told my guys. Like, on our way to a house or a residence that we're executing a high-risk warrant on it, I always tell my guys one thing, fucking lock it in. Lock it in and let's execute and let's go home. Like those are all I want my guys to hear, because all I want on their fucking mind right now is here's our plan, here's the mission, here's our goal, execute it, let's fucking go home. I need them to be locked in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because once that, you can sit there and you can plan all day, like even like relating it to your fitness life, you can sit there and be like, oh dude, I'm gonna fucking meal prep and I'm gonna go to work out this blah, 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 blah. Dude, you can plan as much as you want until that fucking door bangs.
Yep.
And then after that, it's all out. I think Mike Tyson says it the best. Everybody's got a great plan until you get punched in the fucking mouth.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Because then things change, right? And so it just comes down to that decision, man. Like, yeah, you can have a plan, be prepared. But, you know, one of my old commanders one of my mentors, Tony Metcalf, he was like the Pot County sheriff for years. And he would always tell me, he's like, great plan, just poorly executed. So that's why the execution part of it is very, very important. In Olympic lifts, like I can tell you everything, but if you execute it poorly, it's not a good lift.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
you have to execute, but you have to make a decision and then you have to execute. Don't give yourself time to kind of talk yourself out of it.
Right.
Right. And that's essentially what it comes down to.
Yeah, because I've found, like, me and my friends, we'd always like plan, like, what are we gonna do this week? You know, like you have the SMART goals, which is like specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. But I told one of my buddies.
You just described CrossFit,
yeah.
by the way.
Hell yeah. And I just remember telling my buddies, I was like, you know, we could be so busy planning, we're missing the opportunity to just get it done.
Yeah.
I was like, we already know what to do, let's just go do it.
Yeah.
You know, because we're not planning to, you know, shit the bed, or we're not planning to, you know, go do A, B, and C, which is not gonna benefit us, you know, but we go do those things anyway. So that's why, like, when I started running, I was like, well, I already know what to do. I just put my fucking shoes on, tie them up, and hey, babe, I'll see you later. And I'm just out the door. Yep. You know, because I find that sometimes people are just so busy planning, and they're like, no, like the plan's not perfect yet. But it's like, well, execute, like you had said, so that way when the moment comes, you're at least like ready for it. Yeah. Because like going back to like being uncomfortable, like you're not gonna plan to be uncomfortable. You're just gonna be uncomfortable. Yeah. And like even today, like when you said you hit round 12. For me, it was, I got here, I finished the first run, and me and my buddy, we got here and we got to halfway, and then everything just kind of went fuzzy, and then that's when I knew, I was like, hell yeah, like it's time to like,
to lock it in. Yeah.
Because in David Goggins' book, right, I'm gonna get him on the pod one day.
Oh, dude, that'd be awesome.
Sick, right?
Yeah.
And in one of his chapters, he talks about like meeting the wizard, and he talks about like you're about to pass out and you can barely stand and everything's kind of like fuzzy. and he was going through, I think, Budge training, if I'm not mistaken, or one of his like one of the many 800 runs he was doing.
Yeah.
And he was like, you know, if you meet the wizard, he's like, then you're like progressing. That's when you're really growing. You don't want to do that shit every day.
Yeah.
But around like today, like when I hit round 10, I just looked at my buddy. I was like, we're halfway there, and then I was just repping them out and everything. And because you're never, like I said before, you're not gonna plan to be uncomfortable, you know, but
you have to accept
you're gonna be there. Like,
yeah, you have
can't
to
run
accept
away
it.
from it.
Yep.
Because like you said, what you don't change, you choose. And what I would tell myself and all my buddies is, you know, the work don't get better, you get better.
Right.
And so I just tell myself that. I was like, you know, what do I want people to see? What do I, like when I have kids one day, I don't want them to just see dad like on the sofa just watching Netflix, eating chips all day.
Yeah.
You know, and then being like, oh, I'm gonna go do that tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes and then I'm not doing it. You know, so just that execution part and knowing like shit's gonna suck.
Yeah.
You know, embrace it.
Yep.
Because at the end of it, like right now, I know my buddy, even though he's like dying a little bit, I know when I message him later, I was like, yeah, how you feel? He's gonna be like, yeah, I feel great. Yeah. And everything, you know, and that was just one more person that I helped today. Yeah. You know, and even just that positive aspect, because I used to like talk smack, you know, and in fighting, like you don't have to, but you know, it kind of goes hand in hand. You're gonna talk shit a little bit, but when I would just tell people like, yo, like, what's the worst that could happen? Like you die, like, oh, so big deal. Yeah. Or like you get injured, like there's still ways around it. Like the gentleman that hurt his elbow today, he didn't stop and just leave.
Nope, we patched him up and he kept going.
He kept going.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, you gotta respect those individuals, because it's so easy just to make an excuse. And it's, people run away from being like, nah, like I'm hurt, let me just leave now. Yeah. You know, but it's,
oh yeah.
And shit like that you're not gonna plan for. Like he didn't think, oh yeah, today I'm gonna come in, do something, I'm gonna get injured, but I'm gonna leave. Like you gotta expect the unexpected. Yeah. And you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable, because 100%. That's the only way you're gonna see real progression for you to become who you are meant to be. Not even like who you want to be, because there's been times where, like even when we were doing Olympic lifting, if you would have told me I'd be doing this, I'd be like, yo, there's no shot. Let alone now I'm like, hey, I want to get better at this. And now like my max squat was 225, you know, and then like last week we were at the gym and they had 225 on, and I just did it 5 times and I was like, holy shit, like, this is sick, you know? And just having the plan to execute, you know, and know like it's gonna suck and everything. Yeah, and absolutely. Just being in there.
That's what I mean. It's like it is getting done, and like, you know, going back to, you know, you can't plan to be discomfort, right? But in any mission statement, any mission plan, you always plan for contingencies, right? And that's just being prepared. Like, okay, if I go through and I smack my arm on a J hook, am I gonna stop or am I gonna push through? You know what I mean? It all comes down to a decision. Like, you're at a crossroad. Which way are you gonna take? Are you gonna take right or are you gonna take left? You know what I mean? And so it does come down to that. But the thing is having that angle, right? Like, what do I want? Do I want, like you want to be better in Olympic lifts. So what did you do? You came up to me and was like, hey coach, this is what I want to do. And we executed, right? And so I know when I send these emails off, I look at it and I'm like, he's not gonna like this. No. But I know you guys are gonna get it done. You know what I mean? So that's the thing though, dude. It just comes down to a decision, right? Yeah. Like that's why I think everybody underestimates the power of a decision. And that's with anything in life, your fitness goals, your life goals, like things like that, you know. Like me, I've been divorced twice. You know, divorce sucks, but the thing is what am I gonna do? Am I gonna sit here and sulk and fucking smash a bottle and be all depressed and stuff like that? No, I'm not. Why? You know what I mean? Like, why don't I want to be like that? I can think of a lot more reasons of why not do that than reasons to be better and live my life, you know? Right. Like, because like alcoholism and divorce rates in law enforcement are super high. And unfortunately, we have a lot of law enforcement officers that commit suicide because of that, you know what I mean? But it's just that they, at that point, they don't see any other avenues, right? Because they haven't planned for contingencies.
Yeah.
And I think that's why having contingencies, there's nothing wrong with having contingencies. Even, my team leaders, I was like, okay, hey, it's a solid plan. Where's your contingency list? Give me your contingency list and let's plan, okay, if this is what we do. If this is what we do. But I give you free reign because I'm not in the shit. I'm not in the house. So right. If you come up to a door that's completely barricaded, here's our contingency for it. Okay, if that contingency fails, let's figure something else out. Like there's always a way, and that's why I think I gravitated to CrossFit, because everything's scalable. Everything. Like it doesn't matter. Like if somebody comes in here and they can't do pull-ups, hey, don't worry. We have X, Y, and Z that we can do. The progressions and regressions, right? Yeah. So having contingencies is very, very, very important, but you have to make the decision to execute those contingencies. Just because your plan isn't working and you're like, fuck, it's not working. What are you gonna do? You're just gonna fucking stand there? No, like you gotta get it done. You know what I mean? I look at it like your fucking water line. Like say you're doing something like, Jen's like, hey, we need to replace the sink. And then you pop the fucking water line. If you stand there, the water's coming out, whether you like it or not. You can stand there and just let your house completely get flooded, or you can execute something, right? Put your fucking finger in it or whatever. Stop. Just your goal is to stop the water.
Right.
So that's the thing. It comes down to decision making and the execution, right?
Yeah.
100%. So
that's all it is for you guys watching. Just make a decision.
Just make a fucking decision, man. Let's go.
Yeah, because it's not fun. Like Muhammad Ali said, he said, the man who sees the world at 50 as he did at 20 wasted 30 years of his life.
Exactly.
So even if it's just like, you say, no, I'm not gonna take this anymore. Like I'm tired of, eating bad or like drinking or whatever the case is. Even that decision and saying no, and you're saying yes to like other things too that will benefit you.
Yep.
And everything. Because sometimes like making a decision doesn't just mean I'm gonna do this and because it's good, or what I'm trying to say is like even if you say no to something, like, not hanging out with people that don't really benefit themselves and aren't gonna benefit you. It's like, you know what, I'm not gonna hang out with these people every weekend, maybe like once a month on a weekend, and separating yourself from those people for like to see where you can progress to, because when I had asked what was one of the things you had sacrificed, one thing I realized was, like I'm not going out with my friends Friday night. Like I got bag. I put my watch this way. I got bag work, and then Saturday morning I got 12 rounds of sparring. It's like, well, when do you take up? When are you resting? It's like when I'm sleeping. When I'm not hanging out with you guys, that's when I'm sleeping.
Yeah, dude. It's and there's another saying, like you can't soar with eagles if you fly with crows. It's not going to happen, right?
Soar with eagles if you fly with crows.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, you got to surround yourself with like-minded people. You know what I mean? But like me, like I'm a man of faith, right? I believe in God. And how can I achieve that relationship with God if I'm hanging out with worldly people? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So you have to change it, right? If you want to be successful, surround yourself with successful people, because it's the mentality that comes with it, right? So if you want to be a good Olympic lifter, hang out with Olympic lifters. You know what I mean? If you want to be good at, I don't know, reading books, join a book club.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
There's always your group of people.
Exactly, and that's what it is like you need to surround yourself with like-minded people, right?
Hell yeah.
Like in the military, you want to be a non-commissioned officer, but you want to be a damn good non-commissioned officer. Are you going to hang out with a bunch of fucking privates and shit? No, you're going to approach your NCO and be like, hey, sir, can you mentor me? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
like, going back to my law enforcement days when I was a patrol lieutenant, all the guys, and I pride myself on this, like all the guys on my shift, I had a shift of like 5 deputies. And I specifically talked to each one of them, like, what do you want to do? What's your goal? What's your goal? What's your goal? And every single one of them have met their goal. Like everybody that got promoted was off my shift. So was I getting a shift of new guys? Yeah. Did that suck? Yeah, it did, because I got to start all over again. But I pride myself on it because all of my guys under my mentorship promoted into the positions that they wanted. I had one guy that wanted to go narcotics interdiction. He became an interdiction officer. I had one guy that wanted to go do investigations. He actually became a lieutenant of investigations. And then my other guy, he just wanted to go out and smash cars and find dope. So I made him a freaking interdiction guy. So, right. You know what I mean? It's like, but you have to come to me with a goal, you know, right. But then you have to find that person that can help you achieve that goal. And that's, like I said, you can't soar with eagles if you fly with crows. You
that's
can't.
That's a bar right there.
You know what I mean? It is, and that's the thing, dude. But you also have to understand that a tree, you plant a tree and you plant a grass, they all start from the same spot.
Yeah.
But what gets bigger?
The tree, of course.
You see what I'm saying? So it's all about changing the mentality, right? You can always start at the same spot. Doesn't necessarily mean that that's where God ordained you to be. You know what I mean? So be the tree.
Be the tree.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that's just the way it comes down to, and that's how I live my life now. You know what I mean? Like, does my life suck? No, it doesn't. I have a great life. You know what I mean? Are there things that I would like to change in my life? Yes, but I don't worry myself on things that I can't control. I worry myself on things that I can control. Right. You know what I mean? And I think everybody needs to do that. Yeah. Don't sweat, you know, don't cry over spilt milk, like that old saying, you know what I mean? And it's true, like, just clean it up, you know what I mean? And move on, like, play the hand that you're dealt, right, and see what the outcome is. You know what I mean?
Something I always tell everyone, like, you know, like when people complain like, oh, this happened, I was like, all right, well, you can't control that. Yeah. You know, like, but what you can control is what you do after that.
Exactly.
You know, so like if we were running, like we couldn't control the rain. Yeah. You know, we still ran today. You know, like my buddy, I think he hurt his hand on doing the pull-ups.
Oh, did he tear?
Yeah, but you know, he has soft hands, but that's besides the point. You know, but you know, he was like, well, I'm still gonna do the pull-ups. Yeah. You know, like,
but he made a decision.
Yeah.
He's like, fuck it, I'm gonna do it.
And even just like, there's just things you can't control, and I find that a lot of people give so much light to that, and they hone in on that, and it's like, all right, well, now you're just wasting your time. Yeah. Like, you're not moving forward, you're not progressing, you're not making the situation better. Yeah. You know, like, especially if it's gone, it's gone. Yeah. You know, like, what can you control, and just do that. Yeah, exactly. You know, just those little steps.
And that, you know, an easy way to put that too is like, I always just tell the people, where do you think you would be? How much further along do you think you would be if you stopped complaining, made a decision, and just execute it?
And that's it.
That's it. It's what it just comes down to. And that's what I'm saying. Like, you can tie all of this back into the fitness world, like with the CrossFit. And I know earlier you asked me with the Olympic lifts, and that's why, right? It's because there's going to be times that you just got to shut your brain off and just execute the lift, right? Yeah. You just have to make a decision, like, I'm going to lift this fucking weight, and just do it, right? And then I can help tweak it to that point to make it a better lift, safer for you, where you're not going to injure yourself. But we're always going to progress through discomfort. Yeah. Always.
So I look forward to. That's why when I first started here, I thought, like, I'm in shape. Yeah. I'm not in shape. When I started here, I realized...
Well, you also got to remember, dude, round is a shape. You know what I'm saying? Sure. So it's all about perspective, right?
True.
You know,
not in good shape. Let me say that.
But it is.
I was like, yeah, like I'm a pretty in shape. Yeah. You know, individual. Like, I'll do pull-ups, push-ups when I'm home. But I remember, I don't know what we did. It just felt like the closest I've ever been through going through hell. Yeah. And I just remember laying on my back with my foot on the seat of the rower, and I puked like 3 times in my mouth. And I was like, I don't remember having chicken parm for dinner last night, but I'll take it. Yeah. And I love CrossFit, and I love Olympic lifting. I miss combat sports because that's just in my nature. But holy shit, I remember driving home one day thinking, if I was doing CrossFit when I was doing combat sports, completely different athlete. Yep. and just the sheer endurance, like the assault bike. Whoever fucking made that shit, I like them, but they're Satan's spawn. But the assault bike is amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing piece of equipment. Even like burpees or anything, you know. So
and that's the thing.
Man.
You got to understand too is like it depends on the sport. Like that's why I like CrossFit, because it's everything. It's everything, right?
It's everything.
Like you can't take a marathon runner and you put them on a mat to roll with somebody for 2 minutes. They're going to be smoked.
Yeah,
right? It's because it's a different type of conditioning. It's a different type of movement. And that's why I think CrossFit is such good, because like I'm not a specialist, right? We don't specialize in anything, but we're good at a lot of things.
Right.
So like you can't take a marathon runner and have them come in here and back squat 315 pounds, but I can damn sure take a CrossFit athlete, have them do a 315 pound back squat and go run a 5K.
Yeah,
he ain't gonna be
crazy.
he's not gonna be fast, but you know what? He's gonna do it.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's
100%.
like, that's why I think CrossFit is such a pinnacle force in the fitness world. Like, yeah, there's a lot of stigma to it, you know, like, am I ever gonna be a Rich Froning or a Joe Frazier or anything? Like, no, I'm not, you know what I mean? But I don't expect my guys in the gym to be like that either. I just want them to be the best version of themselves. You know, and that kind of goes back to like, you don't have to be in shape to do CrossFit. You don't. And that's what I love about it, right? You can just come in and get better, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's kind of like that, what's the word I'm looking for? Collateral damage, in a sense, you know what I mean? You come in here and you do this, you're eventually gonna get better without even trying to get better. You know what I mean? It's just because it's that collateral. It's that cause and effect, you know? So that's why, like, the biggest message I can tell people out there is, you know, like, there's a lot of people that are like, man, I've been wanting to, try CrossFit, but it's intimidating. Yeah, it absolutely is.
It is.
But here at this gym, we don't want it to be intimidating. We just want you to come in here, hang out with your friends, and be the best version of yourself. And no matter what your limitations are, we can work around it.
Yeah,
and you're still gonna get that same result, you know. And
I
that's
can
why.
attest to that.
Yeah,
I've come in here and I see different kinds of people, and they're, regardless of even if they're scaling or not scaling, like, it's still like a good community.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'll come in, I say hi to everyone. Everyone's like all smiles until we're working out. Then everyone's like has that pain face, but that's
exactly.
expected.
But that's the thing. We're suffering together.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know what I mean?
That's what I like.
Yeah.
That's what I like.
I mean, like, you take Kayla and you take Sarah, like, they couldn't come in with the big class, but they still came in here and they're knocking it out right now. They're knocking out Murph. Even though they probably didn't want to, but they're still in the gym and they're still smashing it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the whole point. It's not just a one and done. It's a lifestyle. And people have to realize that, like, there's a reason why people always like, oh, you can tell a CrossFitter why, because all they talk about is CrossFit.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason why. It's because it's so good. You know what I mean? Like, we have guys that came in here that were, diabetic and having to take like their diabetic medicines and stuff, and then they come in here and they work out and they don't have to do that anymore. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that CrossFit is the cure for everything. No, it's not.
Right.
But it at least is going to get your body where it needs to be. Because you got to think about it, as human beings, we're roamers. Like, we're designed to move. Like, God has designed us to be functional. God has designed us to move. That's why we can bend. That's why we have joints. That's why, you know what I mean? And like, sheer will, like, that's the thing too, is like, so it's just making the decision and just coming in and knocking it out.
I had one guy who I taught boxing. He was 65. His name was Kevin. Big dude. And at first, like, I thought, like, he was like, yeah, I have these injuries. And I was like, all right. And we're just hitting the mitts. And he's like, nah, man, like, he's like, make me fucking, like, work.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, he said, yeah, like, he was dripping in sweat, panting. And he told me, he was like, movement is medicine.
Yeah.
And he's like, a lot of people think they stop moving because they get old, but they get old because they stop moving.
Yeah.
And he's like, plus I have a 45-year-old wife, so I got to keep up with it. And I was like, all right, man. I was like, all right.
Well, and that's why you always hear me say, like, with soreness, motion is lotion. It's lotion for the muscles.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, Here, you know, you do Murph. If you go home and you just sit on the couch and you don't do any stretching, you don't be active recovery, you're going to be sore as shit,
Your legs
right?
are going to lock up.
Versus you come in here, you knocking out Murph, and then you have a productive evening. You know what I mean? Go for a walk, do something, grocery shop, clean your house. Just keep moving. You'll notice that your soreness level is not going to be as extreme as if you were just to go home and sit on the couch. You know what I mean? And that's what we try here at Junction City. That's what CrossFit would try to tell these guys is like, dude, go home and stretch. Go home and go for a walk. Like walk your dog. I know like you and Jen always take your dogs out, you know, take them out to the lake and let them run around. That's great. That's active recovery. You know what I mean? You don't have to, you know, just go home and like, oh, I did a workout and think that everything's okay. Because I'll tell you one thing, man, if you 6-pack's what you want, 6-pack's made in the kitchen, it's not made in the gym. You know what I mean? You got to clean your diet up. Yeah. You eat like shit, you're going to perform like shit because that's just what your body is. You know, your body is a machine. What you feed the machine is going to be the output. Yeah. And then that's the biggest, I think the biggest hurdle in fitness or in like a healthy lifestyle is diet. People just have a shitty diet, and the society, they contribute to it. Why? Because everything is convenient. It's processed foods, you know what I mean? Instead of like, and I'm guilty of it too. Like, you know, like,
we all are.
Like, I'll leave the gym. I'm like, you know what? Tonight's a McDonald's night.
So I'm having Domino's tonight.
Yeah, you know, and I feel like shit after I eat it. But that's the thing is, it's all about convenience. You know what I mean? But the thing is being comfortable with the uncomfortable. Like, yeah, you don't feel like cooking, but get your ass up and fucking cook something. You know what I mean? It's a lot better than the processed foods. Yeah. So there's anything can be tied into it. You know. So, but yeah, other than that, man.
Hell yeah. So I will finish out, I'll ask a series of just questions. Okay. And you'll just answer them as fast as you can.
Okay.
All right. If you had to do one workout, just one movement, what would it be?
Thrusters.
Thrusters? Damn. If you had to eat just one breakfast food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Eggs.
Eggs? How?
Either or, but hard boiled.
Ooh. All right. What's one thing in your morning routine that you could add to make it more efficient?
Pray more.
Pray more? I like that. Do you have a certain brand of shoes that you recommend for CrossFit?
I like the Nike Metcons because it just has a wider toe box, and like I don't like my toes to be squinched.
Bunched up like
Yep.
this.
So I like the Nike Metcons because they have a bigger toe box. But Nike and Noble are probably my two go-tos if I do anything.
Hell yeah. And if you were stranded in the woods and you can only have 3 things, but you have food, water, and shelter, what are the 3 things you would like?
Fire. Something.
No, you got that.
Okay. 3 things that I would want: sleeping bag, one. Okay. Some type of cover, whether it's like a tarp or something like that, and then my Bible.
Man of faith, strong faith. I
absolutely.
Like that. Nice. So, if you could just leave one, I know you said you said a lot of great things, but what's one thing that you really live by?
Never let them see you sweat.
Never let them see you sweat. All right, I like that.
Yeah, that's what my dad used to tell me all the time. And that's the thing, man, like never let them see you sweat, so don't let the small shit bother you.
Okay, I thought you meant like in the gym.
Nope. No, it's like don't sweat the small stuff, man. You know what I mean? Like
don't let them see you sweat.
Don't let them see you upset. Don't let them see you bothered. Don't let them get a reaction out of you that they want, right?
I like that.
That's why I'll say never let them see you sweat.
Yeah, with negative things people say, I'm like, yeah, like I'm my favorite channel too. Mm-hmm. You know, they're tuning into the Vegas show.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm your host. That's something I'd say when we ruck. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I'm not the best rucker. Yeah. And I know that, but, you know, I'll still go out. But we were doing a 12-mile, and people were just, like, chirping in my ear. Mm-hmm. And one of the guys was like, one of the cadres, he was walking with us, and he's like, you're going to let them talk to you like that? Mm-hmm. And I was like, they're just tuning into the Vegas show. I was like, and I'm your host, baby.
Exactly.
And that was it. And, like, because people are going to say things about you, to you. You know, again, I'd rather focus on like the people that are doing something to help me prevail and to get better. Because there's going to be naysayers. You could be at the top of your game, and at the best, there's still going to be people.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Talking. That's the important thing. Just remember, when you turn and look behind you, and you see where they're at.
Yeah.
And you see where you're at.
Hell yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's why I say just never let them see you sweat. Don't let them see you
sweat.
hurting. Don't let them see you suffering. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, they're chirping in your ear, but like, dude, I'm having a fantastic fucking time. Let's go. You know
like
what I mean?
the Rambo meme where he's like,
yeah, dude, and it throws them out. It throws them off their OODA loop, right? Because they're not expecting that, right? So when you come in here like with the Murph, like, yeah, I was dying, but you wouldn't have been able to tell because why? Fuck you. Why? That's why.
why?
You know what I'm saying? Like that's that.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's perfect.
I hate to say it like that, but that's essentially what it is, right?
truth.
It's. Let me do what I'm doing, dude, and then we will have this conversation when I'm done because I'm a very task-oriented person, and a lot of people, especially with the military, you guys are task-driven, right? Because you move from one task to the next task, you know, and that's why I think that saying is my favorite go-to is because you never let them sweat. I'm not going to give you the gratification to see me suffering. That's just the way it is, you know.
Hell yeah.
So.
All right.
All right.
All right, Coach. Thank you.
Hey,
Thank
not
you
a
so
problem.
much for